There it is. Mike Moses, 5th grade instructional.
Makeup.
Okay.
I need somebody.
It was
On camera,
in
I'm
an
not
email,
looking so great.
and it had an.
Okay. Y'all, I'm recording this meeting. Curriculum instruction, they love being involved in these things, but they can't be here today, so I told them I would record it. Okay.
Your emails aren't working today, by the way.
Email's not working?
I tried to email Scott and Lauren, it says their email can't be done today.
Oh, no. Oh, maybe
I'm like, I
they're,
email them all the time.
there are meetings and all, I think. But we want to share what we're doing. Okay, so it's in our Mike Moses Drive, Mike Moses Elementary Drive, under Spring 2023. Y'all are all there?
Well,
I clicked on the link and found it.
Okay.
But she didn't get the email, so she's looking surprised.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay, y'all.
So I told her, I got you. Here's what I can do. Here, let me share this with you.
I'll look on theirs, because my computer's gonna die, and it's too far.
There's a plug over here too that stretches. Just saying.
Just dragons. Okay.
Is there no
because-
science on this?
Not yet. We can add science. I'm focused on reading and math right now.
Okay. It's not a member of the shared drive. See, that's the problem. Okay.
Do I need to share our drive with you?
Yes,
That's on me.
But I just shared the document itself.
Oh, that'll
the
work.
5th grade instructional minutes for now.
Oh, 5th grade instructional minutes or the plan?
Instructional improvement.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm ready.
All right. So, a lot of this, y'all are already on it. I wanted to review a few things that might bump things up a little bit. On the math part, we'll go through that first. It says required instructional practices. One thing I wanted to touch on with the kids, or you to touch on with them, Monica, because I know you do focus on this with them a lot, like showing that you believe in them, that they can do this, they can tackle these problems. There is an article that I think would be good for the whole team to read. Well, there's two articles actually. One is Productive Math Struggle, Promoting Productive Struggle in Math. And I think it really segues into science too, because it's kind of a, problem solving content area. And then there's another one, Engaging Elementary Students in Independent Work Time. So thinking in terms of what kids are doing during our blocks that really will help to cement their learning is something we need to focus on, and we're focused on that 3 through 5. So the next thing is word problems for each week. Like, which word problems can we use? Do we need to pull from some other sources? Do you feel like you have plenty? I think you told me
I
you have
do
a
them
source
daily.
that you I know you do. How many word problems are they solving? How can we help in the other content areas? Like, okay, using vocabulary that maybe was on the benchmark and will be on STAR that we can use across all content. One example I've been using with teens is that word selection, which is a reading thing. On the reading STAR, it'll say, in this selection, the character, this, that, and the other. Well, we don't typically use the term selection with kids. We'll say passage, or, and I think I've talked to you about this before. Yeah. So any words like that y'all see in any of the STAR tests.
Integrate.
We've even
Integrated.
used infer quite a bit too.
You
Like,
go.
okay, so based on what you see in
I
this
love
problem,
that.
how do you infer?
I love it. Rigorous and engaging math stations, differentiated for students' level of mastery. I don't know what y'all are currently doing, for stations. I think if they're doing their problem solving and they're in the flow of that, that's great. But we might need to build in some more hands-on stuff, like, okay, for kids who still don't understand concrete, say with fractions, what stations could they do that, say maybe they're your tier 2 or tier 1 kids that, like they're tier 1, but you know they need that reinforcement. What could they do to get their hands on stuff?
I'm like the queen of manipulatives,
Uh-huh.
so I have a whole drawer with fractions specifically, and I have fraction bars and circles. I like the circles better because you can complete and show
Oh,
one.
yeah.
And the minute somebody has a question about fractions, I mean, that drawer is usually not even put up. It's usually sitting out on the table and we run and grab it. Today, somebody was having a question and I ran and grabbed the fractions and said, show
There you
me.
go.
And, well,
Yeah, and I would say if they can have it in the middle of their tables for the day, whatever you're working on, and it's just there,
anything I need for that day for teaching,
will be there.
I put
Okay,
out on the middle of
perfect.
the tables.
Okay, then the next column is INE. So I know y'all have your blocks pretty planned out. I don't know what you're currently doing for INE. I know Fourth really hasn't been doing it, which they told me today. But INE is part of what we're required to do. How do we need to start splitting it out where, okay, we're focused on math this week, or we're focused on reading this week? Thinking in terms of also how we can use our social studies block to help a little bit with that. Like, they would just have the activities ready to go.
And she's been doing that.
Perfect, okay.
She has. She's really been rocking that. And not only has she taken things that I've given her, but she's gone out on her own. She comes to me and says, what is it
That's
kids are
great.
struggling with? And I'm like, one of them is greatest common factor. And she goes and finds something and says, how is this? She has them do writing and make up a problem, solve their own problem. And then she comes in and puts it in the box in the trays so that I can see them and see the
And
things they're working
is that
on.
more
So-
like extension activity, or are you doing that like, we've got
Supportive and like doing just intervening and doing what I can to,
okay, so
support
do you
and
see
enforce
this
all that
column right
they're-
here, Monica, where it says for the INE part? So whatever it is y'all are doing, can y'all add that there so I can see what the current plan is?
We're not for reading.
You're not for reading.
No, there's not really any.
Well, I'm doing the
that I've
patterns of
got
power
to-
for reading.
So that's her,
all
and
I-
that
I
has
mean-
to be what she does in her instructional block for me, because there's not
I mean,
time
there's not.
in my
do
day.
it in
That's
your
why
block.
they gave it to her. So that really took out any intervention time for her to do any reading, because the intervention
But
time
I
she would
still
be
try
doing
to work
is.
that into great reading with the social,
Yes,
you know what I'm
and so
saying?
that's the only time in her block that would be eligible. And then I really, for win time or INE time, they're on Zern, but we did have the second
Because
intervention
of their
time.
action plans and all that, yeah.
See, but now I have nothing for HB 4545, because that was the time I would be doing stuff for that. But they're on, like, we did math last week. She had gotten a lot of stuff together for math, and we had a math week, and that was great. With really like reading, like, because the second intervention time was given back whenever we did the recess, there hasn't been time to do read work, so I don't have their comprehension. I don't see where they're growing, and we have not got to do anything for reading.
Well, and let's go down to the reading then. So for the reading, INE is one part of it, but going over to, sorry, I'm scrolling all up and down this thing. Okay, so kids should be receiving, feedback and intervention during the reading block. Now, does it mean every kid needs that every day? No. There are some kids who are in tier 3 who really need to be working with you every single day. And
agree.
that can be your HB 4545. If you're doing your interventions in your block, that serves for that. Now, it may not be Zern. There's all kinds of ways we can intervene for the kids. It doesn't have to be Zern, So, and you've been doing that. I know you're working with your kids. Is there a way where we can also support her in reading so that she can have an INE week, like y'all could alternate it. Math week, reading week, math week, reading week.
My only thing is, what do they do on reading week? Like, I don't know
That's
that
where y'all have to come
yeah, I
together
don't know
and
what
plan
it
that
should
out.
look like.
Typically, you should have 3 intervention groups, and the other kids should be extending. So, or 4. Y'all got 4 teachers. So you're working with one group on, say you're, I don't know, working on really emphasizing ACE with them. And they've got a short passage that you've worked on with for 2 days. And now they're going to do a short constructed response with you. At this point, we need to reinforce their
Don't know how to write.
skills with this assessment. So that's really where I would focus your INE time, in not a drill and kill, but I want to see that you can truly do this. I'm not going to assume you can do it. You're going to show me at teacher table that you can. I'm going to model it for you, and then you're going to do it. So it's basically that teach cycle you do anyway.
That's a lot of
You
what
know,
we're doing.
I
in
do,
Patterns
we
of
do,
Power.
you do, but you do it at the teacher table where you can see them doing it and give them feedback right there. Right then and there in that moment. Okay, I'm reading your short constructed response. Let me read this to you. Is there anything, do you feel that there's anything missing? You know, that kind of thing, having those conversations. So,
We did pretty good with that with math for 2 weeks, because we did the
well,
quick,
there you
we
go.
did the
So
quick
now it's
check.
reading's turn.
Yeah.
So I would say that will help you with your groups too, because you're like, okay, some of your kids are going to have to be double dipped. Say they got an intervention during INE time or WIN time, however you want to call it. Then you're still pulling them with either their book club book that they've been working on or whatever it is. And that's you double dipping them to help their comprehension skills. The other piece for reading, now that we're on the topic, how are they doing with their, independent reading for long periods of time, and they're responding to their reading? Is it still going well?
So that was what I was using ReadWorks for, because they had constructed responses they had to do on ReadWorks with everything they were doing. So they've been out of it for a long time. So the only independent reading they're doing now is book club, and there's not really any short constructed responses that they're doing with their book clubs.
Then I think you could weave that in. They can do that. What you might do is use those nonfiction books, and that's what, they can do short constructive response with nonfiction. They can do short constructive response with fiction, and just weave that into that's how they respond to reading from now on. And then you can look through, you can say, I'm going to pick these 5 kids this day. I'm going to look in their journal entries, see how they did, and I'm going to give them feedback and give it to them as soon as
So
you
they
can.
need to read so much and then do a short
Uh-huh, yeah. So I think that would help right there and give them that daily practice they need, because we need to be using ACE with them every day. So then looking at your formative assessments that you do, if you do short constructive responses, is there another formative assessment you feel you need to be doing, during the week that would help you know where they are?
So right now, with the way it is, and we don't have much time left, next week we're probably not going to do much independent reading, because I have 5 days to teach poetry and hit it super hard, and then get them to do apply. But the problem is our kids are so slow at apply. Like we should not be taking 10 minutes to write something very short, but they're taking 20. Like I'll look down, like they just don't.
Do you
Either
set
they
the
don't
time?
know, or they just.
Do you set the
don't.
timer? Do you say you got 5
Yes,
minutes?
and it does not matter. They are so slow, and so it takes up so much instructional time, because they haven't done anything. And it's not even just that they're lazy, they're slow.
When the 5 minutes is up, do you move forward with
Yes,
whatever's
but
next?
then I go back and do checks, and nobody's got it done.
Well, what do y'all suggest?
I
I see
helicopter
the same
a
thing in
lot.
science, because I do a lot of written responses with them because they have to do it this year.
And she sees the same thing in her class. They just, if you move on and you go to do checks, you're like, oh, we really didn't write anything. Great. Like, I have nothing to check.
Okay, well, what do y'all think do you think modeling for them your expectations on their responses would help?
I think yes, and also, you know, with ELs, it would help us to give them sentence stems to start with.
See,
Okay.
and I always give sentence stems.
Do you?
We have a whole
It's
thing of
whenever
sentence
they-
stems in the front of their journals
Oh.
to use.
Oh, I don't have that. I just, every time we go to write, I'm like, you're writing this, and then you're blank, and fill it in.
I
Like,
can share it with you and you can
beginning
tweak it
sentence
for
stems,
language
because
arts.
we are so slow.
Okay, we have to figure out how to get them more independent with this, and
Because I've even moved into doing shared writing where I do, you do. Like, I'll show you, we do it together, and then we come back and I take your examples, and it's still, like, it's not working.
are y'all modeling it like kind of that metacognition thing? You know, I've read this, I'm thinking this is what I'm writing. Do they understand that it's really a quick write? It's not, you know, something they have to, somebody's gonna just attack them if it's.
I mean, I've gone through
Are they
that
worried about
multiple times
spelling?
with
Is
them.
anybody worried about spelling?
No. I should
Have
be,
you made
but
it, no, have you made it clear that they don't have to worry about spelling?
Yes.
Okay.
I've
And
said-
you should see their writing. They are more than aware we're not worried about it.
Or
It's
handwriting, or
Is it
Just
all of
write
them
it.
or some of them?
It's like very few can do it. Very, very few. Like our top tier, like maybe our top quintile can do it. The rest are just, I don't get it. I've never had this much trouble just trying to get somebody to just write it on your paper.
Mm-hmm.
They can't think through it. It's not like they're lazy. I don't think they can truly think for themselves.
I think they can. They can do it for some
But
things.
but I think that the generation, I think it's a lot across the board. There's so many things that are given to them, just like you used to read, you had to come up with images in your head, and now everything is a video, so I don't even have to create images in my head. I give them math problems, and I'll say, okay, so this question is talking about gallons and quarts. What image comes to your mind?
They just don't.
It's like a blank slate, and I'm like, okay, so here's what image comes to my mind, and then I'll draw. Or this story is about 3 boxes of laundry detergent. Does anybody see a box in their head? No. Like, okay, so draw a box on your paper, and then if there's about 3 of them, then draw 3 of them and write the number on all 3 of them, so at least you have a visual. But
Even that's a
same
struggle.
thing. And we do a lot of drawing pictures. Today we're doing, I call them we do, you do pages, but it's Think Up Math. It's all word problems. And we're doing measurement and conversions. And I do the we do page, and I like read the problem, and then I step away and I'm like, y'all think about it? And then I go to the board after a few minutes, after I've walked around and talked to people, I go to the board and I model for them how I thought about it, and then I let them respond. And you can see that they're struggling. It's not like they all act like they know it, but once it's explained to them, it's like, oh yeah. And then when you get to the you do side, they'll do 1 or 2, and then they'll, I don't know.
Do
and
they
just
have,
get stuck.
do
There's
they
no like
have,
determination.
there's 2 things that come to mind. Do they have a rubric of what's expected of them when they do a response? What a, like, master's level response would be, maybe a meets example.
I don't have
Do
that.
they know what an example and a non-example would be of what you're expecting? You could, I think we could even do something where, okay, these are actual responses I've gotten, okay? I'm not naming names. I'm not gonna say who did this, okay? You don't want anybody to feel bad. And I would probably use examples from classes the kids are not in, you know what I'm saying? And so, okay, I'm reading this short constructed response. Let's talk about what's missing. Talk in your group. What's missing? I want you to write it down. Oh, well, they didn't even cite any evidence from the text.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
doing that
okay.
in a couple of days.
So,
It's already in the plans.
I think y'all need to have a rubric of what you
I'm on that
expect.
before.
Yeah, what exactly you expect, and the kids can check it off before they turn it in, or before they say, okay, I'm done. They have to, and that is your formative assessment too. Like, so
Because we did a short constructed response today, and the thing is, like, they see their work, and they're truly proud of it, and I'm like, you didn't even answer. I was like,
It-
literally,
it's not-
all you had to do today was answer the question, and
Yes.
they just like they're like, yeah, I did it, and I'm like, you didn't even answer one of them.
Yeah, they need that rubric with them at all times. In your content area, what do you expect? And they cannot turn it in. They're not done till they can truly check all that off. A lot of kids will catch themselves. Oh yeah,
How
I
does
guess
that
I
work
didn't really
instructional
explain.
minute wise with how long they take?
You have to give them a time limit, and they have to grade themselves with that rubric and turn it in. And I know they're writing in the journals. I would have them write on paper from now on, so that you can have it and look at it.
Because
Mhm.
it takes forever.
And tell them it's for a grade. I would tell them every single time, this is for a grade. You have buku grades with that. They need to be doing responses every single day to prove that they're learning. And that's your FAs right there. That's your formative assessments every day. You don't get out of here without doing an exit ticket. You don't get out of here without doing your short constructive response. But you need a rubric. So what do y'all think about what component? It needs to be quick. We have some big complicated
Did
rubric.
you answer the question?
Or I would put it in this term. I answered the question.
Yeah.
Like a checklist.
I cited
for
evidence
a
from the
checklist?
text.
Can
I explained my answer.
formative, so when we're talking about a constructed response, you know, for old school, that's beyond fill in the blank, but that's answering a complete sentence. So
Uh-huh.
is that a paragraph or is that
Short
a
constructed response.
short
I-
constructed?
I completed the thought fully. Giving kids, you got to do 3 sentences. That doesn't
Right.
help anybody.
I agree.
I answered the question with a complete thought.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
thinking completely, however you
I was
want to
kind
term
of just
it.
trying to get my head around
Yeah,
it. Is
'cause
this
a lot
like,
of
this
times
isn't
kids
supposed to be a long,
No,
lengthy thing.
it can't
This is,
be.
I completely answered the
Yeah,
question, bottom line.
absolutely.
Okay.
And it's a huge part of another part of it is, did I prove it? Did I give text
Did I
evidence?
provide text evidence? And you might even want to go a little bit deeper with it and say, I
Did I cite
cited
my-
appropriate text evidence or text evidence that,
Right.
you know.
And for us, you're using Scooby, so when they're identifying what information was important in solving that problem, that's your
There's gonna
text
be-
evidence,
there's
that's a
gonna be rubric
cross-curricular.
that is
I need to get a
the exact
poster of
same all the
Scooby.
way around.
Did
For
you
short
hear,
constructed
did you hear
response.
Greer? Go ahead.
Is it gonna be a rubric is the same all the way around?
I think
all
it
the
should
letter
be.
grade? That way
That's
it's
exactly what I was thinking
consistent?
too,
Talk
yeah.
about reinforcing. I mean, if you're all using the same rubric,
Mhm.
they can't get away from it.
So we just
Yeah.
need to sit down.
And
have
then
a
it
meeting
just
and
helps
figure
them
out.
be consistent, you know what's expected in all of them.
And they're gonna rise to that, because usually if you know what your parameters are, you're gonna at least try to get that done. And you won't even have to say a thing. You'll be like, you better take another look at it, because you didn't follow the rubric.
Yeah, like on my environment interactions test, I had put a short answer on there. And the question was, how are the zebra and the lion using the living and non-living components? They're stamping on the soil. Oh, okay, yeah, that was a non-living component,
But they're
but
not using it.
they're not, it's
Yeah.
not part of their survival.
Yeah. I don't even know if you want to say something, say around, I don't even know. More or less I'm saying on topic, like I'm focused in on the actual question I'm supposed to answer, or, you know what I mean? I don't know how y'all would word that, but I do think kids they're like, I'll just put something here. And you're like, this doesn't have anything to do with what the topic is, or what, it's kind of like what you talked about. We're not using soil to stamp on. I mean,
Right.
what is that?
That
How am
doesn't
I
help you
using-
live.
I happen to be walking on the soil.
Yeah.
It's not,
That it's not an essential part of your survival,
Right.
like the sun and the water and the oxygen.
So, I mean, y'all's pretty much your formative assessments are taken care of. And then the other component of it is, say I get a group of 4 kids whose short constructive response, they've done the rubric. I see they've gotten off here. They're not really fully explaining or justifying how they came up with that answer. Your lesson for them is, we're gonna come together and we're gonna talk about what it means to explain.
A lot of them
When I
think that
explain,
giving evidence
I'm
is
giving,
answering it.
I am giving, talking about my thinking around this. I'm not just saying text evidence. I have to talk about what my brain was doing when I came up with this. So that's really where y'all are trying to get the kids to, critical thinking. ACE is a great way to show my critical thinking, but I might need some reinforcement and help in truly explaining what's happening up here in my thinking. So they're gonna need feedback on that to correct it. Because right now, the frustration is I have a big old pile of kids who are not doing it, so I don't even know where to go with them, because you can't have 20 kids at teacher table, and we don't have enough time to have 20 divided by 3 small groups. It won't work that way. We don't have the time. So if we have that rubric, if it's reinforced in every classroom, and then we give them immediate feedback either that day or the next day, they will correct it. So I think you're going to see a big difference in them. And then the other piece is we have to figure out, how's INE going to work? How can we help with reading? Because we've been doing math. What else for math? We kind of got sidetracked with the reading part. So stations, that was the main thing that, like, do you think that there needs to be more with the stations, or you pretty much have them doing their word problems or their project or whatever, and that pretty much serves the stations?
It serves as stations. When I have too many people doing too many different things, it's very easy for different people to be off track. I mean, if everybody is on the same thing, we're all at different places, but it's still easier because they can help each other. They can talk, and we're still working in stations, but we just happen to be doing it at the same time. And it varies. Sometimes we're working at our tables, but a lot of times I use something like Flippity, and I put them in random groups. And so I regroup them all the time to have them do things. Sometimes I have them rotate. So you usually rotate and you're working independently. So you might actually get to work with different people as you go around if you move faster than somebody else. So I kind of changed that up a lot.
The other thing I would say is, and we touched on that with the example and the non-example, using rubrics, but I do think kids need to analyze errors more. If they can pinpoint what's gone wrong, it really helps them think critically.
It didn't mean when I was a kid.
Yeah,
It
and you're
helped
happy
me a
to
lot. I
criticize
remember.
somebody else. You typically don't see your own errors though, until someone kind of gives you that feedback, because your brain does something where it wants to correct the mistakes you make and fill stuff in that's not really there. And in terms of our kids that are on actually, on tier 1, it's a pretty low number across the board. So and the ones that are on tier 1, can we utilize these kids not to be the teacher? That's not the point I'm making. But we've got 23% of our kids who are on tier 1 in 5th grade. That's 14 and 7. My brain isn't working right now.
I have 12 and 7.
I have 14 and 7.
good.
I must have
Better.
counted wrong. I don't know. I've got the data.
That's maybe 14 and 7 is 21. So that's about 21
Thank you for doing the
kids.
math, since I can
See,
do it
I was
right
sitting there, I
now.
was like, is this the math she's trying to do right now?
Yeah, it
It
is.
took me a second.
So we got 21 kids. Do you think there's creatively some things that we could do to help extend for those kids and also get them to encourage their peers some kind of way. I don't know, I'm just trying to think outside the box a little bit.
Well, we all have a staff, and so at least the kids that are higher in each of our different subjects, they're hired to be the mentor.
Okay, well, that's
And
good.
so they, like Jacqueline Rocha, when she finishes her work, she's like, so I'm gonna go help them. And I've talked to them about how to help people and not to give answers and help them think through stuff. And so, and then there are others that necessarily that's not their job, but it's obvious they know what they're doing and they will ask the people that are with them. And I try to walk around constantly, so I'm like, no, you're not just giving them answers. You're teaching them how to think through it, so.
I would say too, like our tier 2 kids, who approached, you know, their scores are not that bad. They're, you know, they're close to, they're not, some of them are not that far away from meeting expectations. So that's really good. How can we get those tier 2 kids to get beyond what's holding them back? What is holding them back? So I think some analysis has to be done on our tier 2 kids. We have a lot of tier 2 in reading, and we have, you know, quite a few in math. That'd be 29 kids in math. And let me look at the reading one. All right, can y'all see this data thing that I've done?
You know what, I couldn't remember where it was, but I have, like, my quintile report is what I'm looking at.
Okay, I've got this,
I probably should have
it's
looked at
under
shares.
it's under assessments
Got
in
it.
our drive, benchmark
Got it.
assessment. So we've got 44 kids on tier 2 in,
It's a lot. It's
but
fine.
again, that's tier 2. That means they're almost there.
Okay, but can I say something? We took in February an end of year assessment.
I understand that.
And
that-
so, but, and so there, a lot of them, like, we haven't even started, first of all, we hadn't finished teaching, and then we haven't started the review yet. So some of these kids aren't necessarily tier 2, they just weren't ready yet for the end of the year. Because now that's,
started argumentative.
yeah, we haven't touched on data and graphs,
There's
we
a
haven't
lot
done
of-
anything with coordinates yet, that's what's left. So once we're done with that, then we'll start the official, like, review. And a lot of times as we get to that much more rigorous questions and more deep thinking, there's gonna be a lot of people that grow. I've seen kids that have grown 20 points between benchmark and star. Because the beginning of the year is all the teaching, and then as you get ready for the review, now it really gets deep and you've got to take all that you've learned.
Well,
and
and the
apply
point I'm trying to make to everyone today is that the going deep and the analysis and the higher levels of blooms, that really needs to be an all year thing.
absolutely.
Waiting till later is not really what we need to be doing. So what I'm trying to say is I do think we have tier 2 kids not based on you hadn't taught it yet. It's based on they're not going deep enough throughout the year. I think that's typically what holds our tier 2 kids back. They're not going deep enough. Tier 3 kids, they're not going deep enough, and they also think they can't do it. And sometimes we think they can't do it because it'll feel like they're letting us down, you know, kind of thing. So tier 2's almost there, and I think they're almost there. I truly believe they could be tier 1 kids by now if they've been going deeper throughout the year. So that's my main push today in talking to all the teams. How can we push our kids to be critical thinkers now?
I can see a lot of
You know.
a lot of reading at least bumping up a lot because there was a lot that were really close.
Yeah, mine too.
They were,
But-
truly. And you
and
got this many tier 2
once
kids,
we get
I'm like,
text evidence-
okay, we can
Yeah, 'cause we created graphs and everything.
Because we really do struggle with constructive responses.
Yeah.
So
And I
we
even
left a lot
counted-
of points on the table.
I even counted our kids that are like around 54%. While that was not approaches, it was close enough that I'm like, come on, they're there.
question.
Yeah,
I was upset initially until I looked at the numbers that were at 50
Yeah.
to 57,
yeah.
and that was a huge.
So, all
group of
this
kids.
conversation is, what are the tweaks and the tightenings we can make to get our kids further, faster?
Guess they're not gonna be
'cause-
happy with us.
Some of it is
You
spending.
don't look like you care.
Some of it is spending a little bit more time, and because there's things that just get introduced this year, and so it has to be hands-on, it has to be
Absolutely.
representative, and then you can go, so I try with every unit to get to where it's more rigorous, but then you got a week and then that unit's over and it's.
I know.
So that's why I'm always trying to cycle around.
And
Hey,
again, I didn't talk about this, but these are the essential things. We don't have.
I forgot to
do it
bring
for
these
every-
with me. Should have created so I gave them back their.
Oh, is this where they got their oh, I love it.
So they had their
Are y'all
third grade
all doing
star, their
this?
fourth grade star. They
Good
probably will,
job.
but this is what, and then the benchmark, and then this is my.
I'm doing something
approaches to
similar. That's what we
masters.
were doing when you came in today. We were doing something
And
similar.
then,
I love it. Go to the top.
oh,
Showing this.
I forgot you're recording. And so then I had them just put, what do you notice? So they could say, I saw in third grade, my score was high and then it's gone down.
Oh, I
What do you
love
feel like you
this.
understand?
She just came in with.
What are you really proud of yourself? And then this is just an example, but I gave them the targeted skills from DMAC and I showed them how to highlight when they've missed something.
Did you see that?
And then on the back, they flipped it over and it has all the skills that were tested on this test. And
Oh,
so if it
wow.
said this is a 2, they put a tally mark. If they missed it,
We can share what?
if they missed it, they did a tally mark, and so if they missed it twice, they wrote it twice. Only one question had 3, and then they go back to the front, and I ask them to put down what areas do you need to work on the most, and then what can you do to be successful this year and prepared for next year.
This is amazing. Can you please share this with Shallon and
Oh,
Hutchins?
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.